In a galaxy where humans are considered nothing more than primitive mercenaries, where cybernetic enhancement marks the divide between the worthy and the worthless, and where blindness in a royal heir means certain death, one unlikely partnership will shatter every assumption the universe holds about strength, loyalty, and what it truly means to see. When Commander Zarathek of the Valdorian Empire captures what she believes to be a simple human bodyguard protecting a defective cyborg, she expects easy interrogation and quick execution. What she discovers instead will force her to question everything she knows about her own people's superiority, the nature of true power, and why sometimes the strongest warriors are the ones who fight not for glory, but for love. This is the story of Marcus Chun, a human who chose to guard the unguardable. Of Princess Lyra, a blind cyborg heir who sees more clearly than any of her enhanced siblings. And of an alien commander who learns that the greatest weakness, tears, might actually be the ultimate strength. Some bonds cannot be broken by torture. Some loyalty cannot be bought with power. And some truths can only be seen by those brave enough to close their eyes and open their hearts. The plasma rifle burned against Marcus Chin's shoulder as he pressed himself against the twisted metal of the crashed transport ship. Through the acrid smoke, he could see them moving, tall, graceful figures in black armor that seemed to absorb the pale light of Kepler, 442b's twin suns. The Valdorian hunting party had found them. "Princess, stay low," Marcus whispered, his hand finding the delicate shoulder of the young woman crouched beside him. Princess Lyra Vextheri, heir to the Cyborg Consortium, turned her face toward his voice. Where her eyes should have been, smooth metal panels reflected the orange glow of the burning wreckage. The neural interface ports at her temples sparked occasionally with damaged circuitry. "How many?" she asked, her voice carrying the strange harmonic quality that all high-level cyborgs possessed. Even blind, even with half her enhancement systems failing, she maintained the poise that had been programmed into her since birth. Marcus peered around the debris again. The Valdorians moved with predatory patience, their elongated limbs and pale blue skin making them appear almost ghostly against the rocky terrain. He counted at least 12, possibly more hidden behind the ridge. "Too many," he muttered, checking his weapon's charge. 17% power remaining. Against Valdorian armor, he might take down 3, maybe 4 before they overwhelmed his position. "You should run," Lyra said quietly. "Leave me. You have no obligation to die for a broken princess." Marcus turned to look at her. Even with her cybernetic enhancements damaged, even blind, and sitting in the dirt of an alien world, she held herself with dignity. The other heirs had always called her defective, a mistake in the consortium's perfect genetic and cybernetic fusion. They had never understood what Marcus saw in her. "I made a promise," he said simply. 3 years ago, when Marcus had first been assigned as her bodyguard, the consortium's generals had made their expectations clear. Protect the princess, but don't expect her to amount to anything. She was blind, her optical implants had never properly integrated, and she would never be a true heir. They gave him the assignment as a way of sidelining a human soldier who had become too decorated, too noticed in a military structure that preferred cyborg officers. But Marcus had discovered something the generals hadn't. Princess Lyra possessed something far more dangerous than enhanced vision or weapon systems. She could think, really think. While her siblings relied on their implants to process information, to make tactical decisions, to feel appropriate emotions, Lyra had developed her mind the old-fashioned way. She saw patterns others missed. She understood people in ways that no algorithm could replicate. More importantly, she was kind. In a galaxy where cybernetic enhancement often came at the cost of empathy, where power was measured in processing speed and combat effectiveness, Princess Lyra had somehow retained her humanity. She remembered the names of servants. She asked about their families. She never issued orders that would needlessly endanger lives. Marcus had realized within weeks that he wasn't guarding a defective princess. He was protecting the future of the consortium itself, if she could live long enough to claim it. "Incoming," he shouted, pulling Lyra deeper into the wreckage as plasma fire erupted around them. The Valdorians had given up stealth for overwhelming force. The attack had come without warning. One moment they had been traveling through neutral space aboard a diplomatic transport. The next they were crashing toward Kepler 442b with half the ship's hull breached. The Valdorians must have been tracking them for days, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Marcus returned fire, his shots precise and economical. Each blast found its mark, forcing the attacking soldiers to take cover. But they kept advancing, using their superior numbers to maintain pressure while flanking his position. Marcus, Lyra's hand touched his arm. I can hear them. 6 approaching from the left, 4 from the right. 2 more positioning for overhead shots from a ridge. He glanced at her in amazement. Her auditory processing had always been exceptional, but this level of tactical awareness without visual confirmation was remarkable. Can you tell which way offers the best escape route? She tilted her head, listening to sounds he couldn't even perceive. Northwest. There's an echo that suggests a cave system approximately 200 meters up the slope. But Marcus, she hesitated. We won't make it together. The terrain is too rough, and I'll slow you down. Then, I guess we make our stand here. A new sound cut through the weapon's fire. A deep, resonant voice calling out in accented galactic standard. Human soldier, you fight well, but your position is hopeless. Surrender the cyborg, and you will be granted a warrior's death. Marcus recognized the voice's authority. This wasn't just a hunting party. They had drawn the attention of someone important in the Valdorian military hierarchy. What do you think they want with you? He asked Lyra quietly. Nothing good, she replied. The Valdorians have been pressuring the consortium to share our cybernetic technology. A royal heir would make excellent leverage. Or an excellent test subject, Marcus thought, but didn't say. The voice called out again. I am Commander Zurathek of the Valdorian 7th Fleet. Your silence tells me you understand your situation. Throw down your weapons and step into the open. Both of you. Marcus weighed their options. His ammunition was nearly depleted. The Valdorians had superior numbers, better equipment, and the high ground. If they stayed here, they would die. If they surrendered, Lyra would face whatever the Valdorians had planned for a consortium heir. But there was a third option. Princess, he said quietly, do you trust me? With my life. Then, when I say run, head straight for that cave. Don't look back, don't slow down, don't stop for anything. Marcus, no, I won't abandon you. He smiled, though she couldn't see it. You're not abandoning me. You're giving me a reason to fight. Before she could protest, Marcus stood up and stepped into the open, his rifle raised but not aimed. Commander Zarathek, I accept your terms, but I negotiate for both of us. The Valdorian commander emerged from behind cover, flanked by 2 soldiers. She was tall even by Valdorian standards, nearly 7 feet, with the pale blue skin and silver hair that marked her as military nobility. Her armor was different from her subordinates, sleeker, more ornate, with energy conduits that pulsed with soft blue light. You're not in a position to negotiate, human, she said, approaching with predatory confidence. But I am curious about your devotion to a defective cyborg. Explain this loyalty. She's worth 10 of your best soldiers, Marcus replied. And she's not defective. She's evolved. Commander Zarathek laughed, the sound like crystalline wind chimes. Evolved? She cannot see. Her implants are damaged. She is weak. Weakness. Marcus shifted slightly, calculating distances and angles. Let me show you weakness. He dove sideways, rolling behind a piece of debris while simultaneously shouting run. His rifle came up, and he put 3 plasma bursts into the nearest Valdorian soldiers. The surprise attack bought him precious seconds, but, more importantly, it drew all enemy fire toward his position. Through the chaos, he heard Lyra moving, her footsteps sure despite the rough terrain. Whatever her cybernetic enhancements lacked in visual processing, they had compensated with enhanced spatial awareness and balance. She moved through the rocky landscape like a dancer, each step perfectly placed. Marcus continued his desperate fighting retreat, using every piece of cover, making every shot count. The Valdorians pursued with professional competence, but they were hampered by their commander's obvious desire to take him alive. They could have simply bombarded his position, but Zarathek wanted to capture the human who showed such unusual loyalty. When his rifle finally ran dry, Marcus drew his sidearm and kept fighting. When that was exhausted, he pulled his combat knife. The Valdorians finally overwhelmed him through sheer numbers, stunning him with neural disruptors rather than killing him outright. As consciousness faded, Marcus saw Commander Zarathek standing over him, her pale eyes unreadable. "Fascinating," she murmured. "A human who chooses certain death for an unworthy cause. We will discover what drives such inefficiency." The last thing Marcus saw before the darkness took him was the rocky slope where Princess Lyra had disappeared. She had made it to the cave system. She was free. For now. When Marcus regained consciousness, he found himself in a Valdorian holding cell aboard what was clearly a capital ship. The walls were smooth, almost organic-looking, with veins of blue light pulsing through them like a heartbeat. The gravity was slightly higher than human standard, making his already aching body feel heavier. Commander Zarathek stood outside the energy barrier that served as his door, studying him with the detached interest of a scientist examining a specimen. "You have been unconscious for 6 hours," she informed him. "During that time, we tracked and captured your cyborg companion. She is unharmed, though perhaps more damaged than we initially assessed." Marcus shot to his feet despite the pain. "If you've hurt her, you'll do what exactly?" Zarathek's tone was amused. "You are imprisoned aboard my ship, surrounded by my soldiers, in Valdorian space. Your threats carry no weight here. What do you want?" "Information. The consortium's cybernetic integration process, military deployment strategies, technological specifications." She paused, "and an explanation for your inexplicable loyalty to a worthless royal." "She's not worthless. She is blind, damaged, weak. In Valdorian society, such defects would be corrected through genetic manipulation or surgical enhancement. If correction proved impossible, the individual would be reassigned to appropriate duties or—" She made a dismissive gesture. "Disposed of efficiently." Marcus stared at her through the energy barrier. "Is that what you think strength is? Perfect vision? Enhanced reflexes? Processing speed? Among other factors, yes. Then you don't know anything about strength." Zarathek's pale eyes narrowed. "Enlighten me." Marcus was quiet for a long moment, organizing his thoughts. How could he explain to this enhanced alien warrior what he had learned from watching Princess Lyra navigate a world designed to exclude her? "Strength isn't about what you can do," he said finally. "It's about what you choose to do." When Princess Lyra was 7 years old, her optical implants failed during integration surgery. The doctors wanted to try again, but the procedure would have required removing portions of her brain to make room for more hardware. "A logical trade," Zarathek said. "Sacrifice personality for functionality." She refused. A 7-year-old child told the consortium's best surgeons that she would rather be blind than lose herself. That's strength. That's foolishness. Is it? Marcus moved closer to the barrier. "When we were attacked by pirates in the Vega system last year, Princess Lyra was the only one who realized they weren't after our cargo. While her siblings were calculating optimal weapon deployment and shield configurations, she was listening to the communication patterns. She figured out they were after medical supplies for a plague outbreak on their homeworld." Zarathek's expression didn't change, but something flickered behind her eyes. Instead of fighting, she negotiated. She gave them the medical supplies they needed in exchange for safe passage. No one died. The pirates got what they actually wanted, and we completed our mission. Her siblings called it weakness. I call it wisdom. "An interesting story," the commander said coolly, "but ultimately irrelevant. The galaxy is not governed by wisdom. It is ruled by power. And what has power given you?" Marcus asked. "You're the commander of a fleet, I'm assuming, feared across the galaxy. But when was the last time someone trusted you? When did someone last choose to stay by your side? Not because they had to, but because they wanted to." For the first time, Zarathek seemed genuinely taken aback. Trust is a luxury for the weak. No, Marcus said quietly. Trust is the foundation that makes real strength possible. Princess Lyra is strong because she has people who believe in her, not because of her title or her cybernetics or her royal blood, but because of who she chooses to be. The commander was silent for several long moments, her pale eyes studying him with renewed intensity. You speak of choice, she said finally. Very well. You have one now. Provide us with the information we require about consortium military capabilities, and both you and the princess will be treated as honored prisoners. Refuse, and she will be subjected to neural extraction procedures that will leave her mind diminished. Marcus felt ice in his veins. Neural extraction was a brutal process, essentially disassembling a person's memories and personality to access specific information. Cyborgs were particularly vulnerable because their enhanced minds contained more data in more easily accessible formats. You have 1 hour to decide, Zarathek continued. I suggest you use it wisely. As she turned to leave, Marcus called out to her. Commander, when you extract what you want from her mind, when you've torn apart everything that makes her who she is, what do you think you'll have left? Zarathek paused at the threshold. Information, technology, strategic advantages. You'll have nothing, Marcus said, because the real value of Princess Lyra isn't in her cybernetics or her royal knowledge. It's in her heart, and that's something you can't extract, copy, or replicate. The commander left without another word, but Marcus noticed her stride had lost some of its predatory confidence. He had planted a seed of doubt. Now he could only hope it would grow quickly enough to matter. In the silence of his cell, Marcus closed his eyes and tried to think like Princess Lyra. She would be analyzing her situation, looking for patterns and opportunities that others might miss. She would be planning not just her own escape, but a way to save them both. He had to trust that she would find a way. After all, she had been navigating impossible situations her entire life. The question was whether he could buy her enough time. Princess Lyra sat perfectly still in her own holding cell, 3 levels below Marcus's position. The Valdorians had placed her in what they clearly considered appropriate quarters for a defective royal, sterile, minimal, with only basic life support. They had underestimated her on every level. While her captors assumed she was helpless without sight, Lyra had been systematically mapping the entire ship through sound, vibration, and electromagnetic signatures. Her damaged cybernetic implants, which the Valdorians viewed as a weakness, had actually developed unique capabilities over the years. Unable to process visual data normally, her neural pathways had rerouted and enhanced her other senses far beyond even typical cyborg parameters. She could hear the heartbeats of guards 3 rooms away. She could feel the subtle variations in the ship's artificial gravity that indicated structural weak points. Most importantly, she could detect the emotional resonance in voices, something her sighted siblings with their perfect implants had never developed. Commander Zarathek was afraid. It had been subtle in their brief encounter, masked beneath layers of military precision and Valdorian arrogance, but Lyra had heard it. The commander was under pressure from her superiors, facing a situation that challenged her understanding of strength and value. This mission was more than a simple prisoner capture. It was a test of some kind. The door to her cell hummed as it deactivated. 2 guards entered, their breathing patterns indicating nervousness despite their training. Behind them came the commander herself, her footsteps precisely measured but carrying just a hint of hesitation. Princess Lyra Vextheri, Zarathek said, her voice carrying formal respect despite the circumstances. I am Commander Zarathek of the Valdorian 7th Fleet. You are aboard my vessel as a prisoner of war. War. Lyra turned toward the voice, her blank metal eye panels somehow conveying surprised interest. I was unaware the Valdorian Empire had declared war on the Cyborg Consortium. This seems like rather an inefficient way to begin hostilities, capturing a single damaged heir and her human guardian. The commander's pulse rate increased slightly. Lyra filed this information away. Your capture serves multiple purposes, Zarathek replied. Strategic intelligence, technological advancement, and diplomatic leverage. Ah, Lyra nodded as if suddenly understanding. You're being evaluated by your superiors. This mission is a test of some sort. May I ask what parameters they're using to judge your success? The slight pause before Zarathek's answer told Lyra everything she needed to know. That information is classified. Of course it is. Lyra stood gracefully, her movements fluid despite the restraints around her ankles. But I can make an educated guess. You're being considered for promotion to the high command, aren't you? But first you need to prove you can think beyond traditional Valdorian military doctrine. Zarathek's breathing pattern shifted almost imperceptibly. Lyra was correct. Your human guardian claims you possess unusual capabilities despite your limitations, the commander said, deflecting from Lyra's observations. Demonstrate these supposed abilities. Why would I do that? Because if you prove useful, you and your guardian will be treated well. If you prove worthless, neural extraction begins within the hour. Lyra was quiet for a moment, appearing to consider this threat. In reality, she was listening to the sounds of the ship around them. Dozens of crew members going about their duties, the hum of engines, the subtle vibrations that indicated their current heading. Commander, you're traveling at approximately 60% engine capacity on a heading that will bring us to the Valdorian 3rd Fleet staging area in approximately 18 hours, she said conversationally. Your crew is operating at elevated stress levels, suggesting they're aware this is more than a routine prisoner transport. And you're broadcasting on 3 different encrypted frequencies, which means you're coordinating with at least 2 other command structures simultaneously. Zarathek's pale blue skin had gone several shades lighter. How could you possibly know any of that? Engine vibrations create predictable resonance patterns based on power output and ship mass. Your crew's elevated heart rates and stress hormones create a measurable change in their electromagnetic signatures. And your ship's communication array creates distinct harmonic interference when transmitting on multiple channels. The commander stared at her for several long seconds. You're reading all of this without visual input. Vision is just one way of processing information, Lyra explained. Often not the most reliable one. Your eyes see what you expect to see. My other senses show me what actually is. Impossible. No cybernetic enhancement allows for such precise sensory analysis. Lyra smiled, the expression somehow both gentle and unsettling. You're absolutely right. No cybernetic enhancement allows for this. My abilities developed because my cybernetics failed, not despite their failure. She moved closer to the energy barrier, her blank eye panels somehow managing to convey direct attention. When my optical implants failed during integration, my brain was forced to rewire itself. Neural pathways that should have processed visual data were reassigned to other functions. Over 15 years, I've developed sensory processing capabilities that no designer ever intended. You're saying your defects made you stronger? I'm saying that what your people call defects, I call adaptations. Lyra tilted her head slightly. Commander, may I ask you a personal question? Zarathek's confusion was audible in her voice. What? When did you last experience genuine surprise? What does that have to do with anything? When did you last encounter something that challenged your understanding of how the galaxy works? When did you last meet someone who made you question your assumptions? The commander's silence stretched for nearly 30 seconds. Exactly, Lyra said softly. Perfection is the enemy of growth. Your cybernetic enhancements, your military training, your genetic optimization, they've all created a ceiling on what you can become. You process information faster than I do, but you process it within predetermined parameters. And you don't. I can't afford to. My survival has always depended on finding solutions that others miss, seeing patterns that others ignore. While you and Marcus were fighting on the surface, I was analyzing the acoustic signatures of your attack pattern and realized something interesting. Zarathek leaned forward despite herself. What? You weren't trying to kill him. Your soldiers had multiple opportunities for clear shots, but they consistently aimed to disable rather than eliminate. You wanted us alive from the beginning, which means this entire operation was planned specifically to capture us. The commander's stillness confirmed Lyra's analysis. But here's what you probably haven't realized yet, Lyra continued. Marcus figured it out too. He recognized the capture pattern during the firefight, which means his decision to sacrifice himself was based on more than simple loyalty. Meaning, he trusted me to find a way to save us both. He bought me time because he knows that impossible situations are where I do my best work. Zarathek stepped closer to the energy barrier. And have you? Found a way. Several, actually. But first I need to understand what you really want from us. And, more importantly, what you're willing to risk to get it. Explain. Lyra moved to the center of her cell and sat down in what appeared to be a meditation position. You could have captured dozens of consortium heirs who would have been more conventionally valuable. My siblings all have fully functional implants, complete access to royal protocols, and detailed knowledge of our military systems. True, but you specifically targeted me, which means either you know something about my unique capabilities or someone told you I was worth the risk. Lyra's head tilted slightly. Given that my own family considers me expendable, I'm guessing you received information from an outside source. Zarathek's pulse rate spiked again. Who? Lyra asked quietly. Who told you about me? That information is classified. Yes, you mentioned that. Lyra's tone remained conversational. But, Commander, you're a military officer. You understand the importance of intelligence verification. How do you know your source wasn't providing false information? How do you know this isn't a trap? For the first time, uncertainty crept into Zarathek's voice. What kind of trap? The kind where a supposedly defective princess demonstrates capabilities that shouldn't exist, forcing a Valdorian commander to question everything she's been taught about strength and value. Lyra smiled. The kind where your success in this mission depends not on your ability to extract information through force, but on your willingness to think beyond traditional parameters. You're suggesting this is some kind of consortium operation? I'm suggesting you consider all possibilities before you make decisions that can't be undone. Lyra's voice carried a note of genuine concern. Marcus and I are valuable to you alive and cooperative, but neural extraction will destroy the very capabilities that make us useful. Zarathek was quiet for a long moment, clearly processing this information. What are you proposing? A demonstration. Give me 12 hours of access to your ship's sensor data. Properly supervised, of course. Let me show you what I can do with information that your computers would dismiss as irrelevant background noise. And in exchange, I'll provide you with strategic intelligence that will advance your career far beyond whatever your current superiors have promised. Lyra paused. But, Commander, I need something from you first. What? I need you to guarantee Marcus's safety. No neural extraction, no interrogation techniques, no harm of any kind. You're not in a position to make demands. I'm in the only position that matters, Lyra replied calmly. I'm the one with capabilities you need, but don't understand. You can try to take what you want by force and destroy it in the process, or you can earn my cooperation and benefit from it. Zarathek studied her for several minutes, clearly weighing options. You have 4 hours, she said finally. Supervised access to non-classified sensor data. If you demonstrate valuable capabilities, we'll discuss terms for your cooperation. And Marcus remains unharmed during the demonstration period. Thank you, Commander. You won't regret this decision. As Zarathek turned to leave, Lyra called out once more. Commander? Your superiors are testing more than your tactical abilities. They want to know if you can recognize value in unexpected forms, whether you can adapt to new paradigms instead of simply executing established protocols. Zarathek paused at the threshold. How could you possibly know that? Because that's exactly the kind of test I would design if I wanted to identify leaders capable of thinking beyond traditional limitations. Lyra's smile was mysterious. The question is, are you going to pass it? 2 hours later, Princess Lyra sat in the ship's secondary sensor control room, surrounded by displays showing everything from electromagnetic readings to gravitational fluctuations. 3 Valdorian technicians monitored her access while Commander Zarathek observed from a raised platform. To the casual observer, Lyra appeared to be randomly accessing different data streams, her blind gaze directed at screens she couldn't see. But she was actually constructing a three-dimensional map of local space based on sensor data that the ship's computers had cataloged as background noise. "Commander," she said without looking up from her workstation, "your long-range sensors show standard background radiation pattern for this sector, correct?" "Yes. Nothing unusual. Look at gravitational fluctuation readings from 6 hours ago. Specifically the micro-variations in grid coordinates 337.4 by 891.2. One of the technicians pulled up the requested data. "I see minor gravitational inconsistencies, probably caused by small asteroid fragments. Now cross-reference those fluctuations with electromagnetic signatures from the same time period and location." The technician's pale blue skin darkened with concentration as he worked. "The patterns are irregular. The gravitational variations don't match expected signatures for asteroid debris." "Because they're not asteroid debris," Lyra explained. "You're looking at the residual signature of a cloaked ship maintaining station in this system." Zarathek leaned forward sharply. "Impossible. Our sensors would detect any cloaking technology within range. Your sensors are designed to detect known cloaking signatures. This is something new." Lyra's fingers moved across her interface, pulling up additional data streams. "The ship has been following us since we entered Valdorian space. It's maintaining a distance of approximately 12 million kilometers and matching our course changes with a delay of exactly 14 minutes. "Show me." Lyra compiled the data into a visual representation, tracking the subtle gravitational and electromagnetic anomalies over the past 18 hours. The pattern was clear once you knew what to look for, a shadow following their movements with mechanical precision. "Consortium?" Zarathek asked. "Unknown technology signature." "But, Commander, there's something else. The delay pattern suggests they're not just following us, they're hurting us." "Explain." "Look at our course changes over the past day. Each time we've adjusted heading, it's been in response to what appeared to be routine navigational requirements. But if you map those changes," Lyra's interface showed their route overlaid with optimal navigation patterns. "We've been subtly guided away from 3 different Valdorian patrol zones and to a region of space with minimal fleet coverage." The bridge fell silent as the implications became clear. "We're being led into a trap," Zarathek said grimly. "Or a rescue operation," Lyra corrected. "The question is whether whoever is out there considers us valuable assets to be recovered or threats to be eliminated. Can you identify the source? Give me another hour with your long-range communication arrays, and I might be able to determine if they're using any familiar encryption protocols." Lyra paused. "But, Commander, there's something more immediate you need to consider." "What?" "If they've been tracking us this long without revealing themselves, they're either waiting for backup or preparing to spring their trap. Either way, your current course of action is leading directly into their hands." Zarathek stood abruptly. "I'll stop. Reverse course immediately." "Commander," one of the bridge officers called out, "we're receiving an encrypted transmission on a priority consortium frequency." "Let me hear it," Lyra said quickly. The message was brief and cryptic. "Package confirmed secure. Delivery proceeding as scheduled. Eliminate complications." "That's not a rescue," Lyra said quietly. "Someone wants us dead." Zarathek's pale eyes fixed on her. "Who would benefit from eliminating both of us?" "Someone who doesn't want you to discover what I can really do," Lyra replied. "Someone who arranged this entire situation to ensure you would have no choice but to use neural extraction. Meaning we've both been played, Commander. And if we don't work together, we're both going to die in the next few hours." The ship shuddered as weapons fire erupted around them. The trap had been sprung. "Incoming ships," the tactical officer reported. 3 vessels, unknown configuration, approaching fast. Zarathek looked down at Lyra, her expression unreadable. "Princess, if you have any other impossible abilities, now would be an excellent time to demonstrate them." Lyra smiled, and for the first time since her capture, it was the smile of a predator rather than prey. "Commander, You're about to learn why the consortium's enemies consider me the most dangerous member of the royal family. She stood and moved toward the tactical displays. But first, I need you to release Marcus and bring him to the bridge. If we're going to save your ship, I need someone I trust watching my back. He's just a human guard. No, Lyra said, her voice carrying absolute certainty. He's the finest tactical analyst I've ever worked with, and he's the only person who can help me implement what I'm planning. Which is something impossible, Lyra replied. Which, as you're learning, is exactly my specialty. Marcus arrived on the bridge, still wearing restraint cuffs, escorted by two nervous guards who clearly had no idea why their prisoner was being brought to the most secure area of the ship. Commander Zurathek stood beside the tactical display, her pale features tight with concentration as she studied the approaching vessels. "Princess," Marcus said, his eyes immediately scanning Lyra for signs of injury. When he saw none, his shoulders relaxed slightly. "Are you hurt?" "I'm fine," Lyra replied without turning from her position at the sensor array. "But we have a significant tactical problem. 3 ships of unknown design are closing on our position, and they're not here to rescue anyone." Marcus moved to her side, noting how naturally the Valdorian bridge crew had begun to defer to her expertise. "What's their configuration?" "Enhanced attack vessels. Faster than anything in the Consortium or Valdorian fleets, with weapon signatures I don't recognize." She paused. "Marcus, someone set this up. The capture, the timing, our location, everything has been orchestrated to place us in exactly this situation. Any idea who?" "Not yet. But whoever they are, they have access to both Consortium and Valdorian intelligence networks." Lyra's fingers danced across her interface, pulling up tactical data. "Commander Zarathek, I need those restraints removed from Marcus. I also need full access to your weapons and navigation systems." "Absolutely not," Zarathek replied immediately. "You're prisoners, not crew members." "Commander," Marcus said calmly, "look at your tactical display. How long until those ships are in weapons range?" 8 minutes. "And how long will your ship survive against 3 vessels of unknown capabilities?" The bridge was silent except for the hum of computers and the increasingly urgent beeping of proximity alarms. "Perhaps 3 minutes," Zarathek admitted reluctantly. "Then you have a choice," Lyra said, her voice steady despite the approaching danger. "You can maintain protocol and die with your principles intact, or you could trust us and possibly survive to see tomorrow." The lead attacking vessel fired a ranging shot, the energy beam passing close enough to their port side to trigger shield alarms. "Remove his restraints," Zarathek ordered. As soon as Marcus's hands were free, he moved to the weapons console while Lyra continued her analysis of their attackers. They worked with the seamless coordination that had kept them alive through dozens of dangerous situations over the past 3 years. "Princess, their shield configurations? Adaptive matrix, probably quantum phase. They'll adjust to whatever weapons we use within seconds of impact. Engine signatures? Modified gravitational drive. Faster than our maximum speed, but they're running hot. They've been pushing hard to get here on schedule." Marcus studied the tactical display, his mind already working through possibilities. "Commander Zarathek, what's your maximum acceleration?" 6.4 gravities for short periods. Reactor output? 92% sustainable, 115% emergency overload. Weapon capacitor recharge time? 4.7 seconds between full power shots. Marcus was quiet for a moment, processing the information while Lyra continued her sensor analysis. "They're hurting us," she announced. "The attack pattern is designed to force us toward the stellar magnetic field lines. If we follow their projected course, we'll be trapped against the star's gravity well." "Why would they want us trapped rather than destroyed?" Zarathek asked. "Because they need something from one of us," Marcus replied grimly. "Dead prisoners can't provide information. The attacking ships close formation, their weapons powering up with ominous energy signatures. "Incoming transmission," the communications officer announced. "Let's hear it," Zarathek ordered. A smooth, androgynous voice filled the bridge. The accent was unfamiliar, carrying tones that seemed almost artificial. Valdorian vessel, you are carrying stolen consortium property. Surrender the defective royal and her guardian for immediate transfer. Comply within 60 seconds or be destroyed. Marcus and Lyra exchanged glances. Stolen property? Marcus muttered. Princess, what aren't you telling me? I suspect I'm not just a prisoner, Lyra replied thoughtfully. I think I'm a target that someone very much wants eliminated. 30 seconds, the voice announced. Zarathek looked between her prisoners and her tactical display. Princess, if you have a plan, now is the time to share it. I have 3 plans, Lyra said. One might save your ship. One might save our lives. One might accomplish both, but it requires trusting Marcus and me completely. 15 seconds. What's the third plan? Lyra smiled, and Marcus recognized the expression from their most desperate moments together. It was the smile she wore when she was about to attempt something that should be impossible. Marcus, remember the Vega incident? When we convinced the pirate fleet to stand down? You want to try negotiating with ships that just threaten to destroy us? Not negotiating. Recruiting. Time's up, the alien voice announced, and the 3 ships opened fire simultaneously. Zarathek's ship shuddered under the impact, shields flaring as they absorbed the energy barrage. The Valdorian crew responded with practiced efficiency, returning fire while maneuvering to avoid being surrounded. Shields at 70%, the tactical officer reported. Their weapons are adapting to our defensive frequencies. Marcus, take weapons control, Lyra ordered. Don't try to destroy them. I need them functional. Target their communication arrays and sensor clusters. Princess, if I disable their sensors, they'll switch to proximity targeting. We'll be sitting ducks. Trust me. Marcus had learned over the years that when Princess Lyra said, "Trust me," in that particular tone, the universe was about to become a very interesting place. He shifted his targeting parameters and began precise strikes against the enemy ship's communication and sensor systems. Meanwhile, Lyra was doing something that made the Valdorian bridge crew stare in amazement. She had somehow patched into their main computer core and was rewriting tactical algorithms in real time, optimizing their shield frequencies and weapon targeting solutions at speeds that should have been impossible for an organic mind. How was she doing that? One of the technicians whispered. Cybernetic processing acceleration, Zarathek replied, though her voice carried doubt. Though I've never seen anything like this level of integration. Actually, Lyra said without pausing in her work, this isn't cybernetic enhancement. This is pattern recognition combined with intuitive system analysis. Your computers process information sequentially. I process it holistically. The battle raged around them as Marcus systematically disabled the attacker's sensor capabilities while Lyra rewrote their ship's defensive systems on the fly. But the alien vessels were adapting faster than anticipated, their weapons growing more accurate with each exchange. Shields at 40%, the tactical officer announced. We can't sustain this much longer. Almost there, Lyra muttered, her fingers flying across multiple interfaces simultaneously. Marcus, when I give a signal, I need you to drop our shields completely. Princess, that's suicide. No, it's trust. Drop shields in 3, 2, 1 mark. Marcus followed her order without hesitation, even as every instinct screamed against it. For a terrifying moment, their ship hung naked in space, completely vulnerable to the attacking vessels. But Lyra had calculated perfectly. In the exact instant their shields dropped, she triggered an electromagnetic pulse from their main reactor that disabled every piece of electronic equipment within a 50-kilometer radius. The attacking ships went dark, their adaptive systems overwhelmed by the massive surge of unfiltered energy. Now, Marcus, full power to engines. Get us away from here. The ship accelerated hard, pressing everyone against their stations as they fled the disabled vessels. But instead of heading for open space, Lyra directed their course toward the system's asteroid field. Princess, we're heading into a debris field, Zarathek pointed out. Our navigation systems are still recovering from the EMP. I know exactly where we're going, Lyra replied calmly. And our navigation systems were never the problem. She was right. Even with their instruments scrambled, she guided them through the asteroid field with impossible precision, using gravitational variations and electromagnetic signatures to navigate between rocks that their sensors couldn't even detect properly. How? Zarathek demanded. How are you doing any of this? The same way I've been doing everything else, Lyra replied. By seeing patterns that others miss. They found shelter behind a massive asteroid that blocked sensor scans from most directions. As their systems came back online, Lyra continued her analysis of the attacking vessels. Marcus, I'm reading life signs on those ships. Definitely not robotic. And the technology, she paused. It's hybrid. Consortium cybernetics integrated with Valdorian energy systems, but the base design is something else entirely. Third party, unknown faction with access to both our technologies. Lyra turned toward Commander Zarathek. Commander, someone has been playing our peoples against each other. These attacks weren't random. They were designed to force a conflict between the Consortium and the Valdorian Empire. To what end? Think about it, Marcus said grimly. What would happen if the two most powerful technological civilizations in the galaxy went to war? Mutual destruction, Zarathek replied. Both empires would be devastated, leaving the galaxy open for conquest by whoever orchestrated the conflict. Lyra finished. Commander, we're not enemies. We're both targets. The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. The attack on your diplomatic transport, Zarathek said slowly. It was meant to be blamed on Valdorian forces, and our capture was meant to provide evidence of Consortium involvement in some larger conspiracy, Lyra agreed. But something went wrong with their plan. What? They didn't account for the fact that Marcus and I would find a way to work with you instead of against you, Lyra explained. Their whole strategy depended on traditional antagonism between our peoples. Marcus moved to the communication console. Princess, if you're right about this, we need to get word back to both governments before. Alarms began sounding throughout the ship. Multiple contacts incoming, the sensor operator announced. 12 ships, mixed Consortium and Valdorian configurations. The cleanup crew, Lyra said grimly. They're here to eliminate all witnesses to their deception. Zarathek straightened her uniform and moved to the command station. Princess, your earlier statement about having 3 plans. What was the one that might accomplish both objectives? We fight them, Lyra said simply. But not as captives and captors. As allies. You're talking about Consortium and Valdorian forces working together. That's never been done. Everything impossible becomes possible when it's the only option for survival, Marcus pointed out. Lyra moved to the center of the bridge, her blind gaze somehow managing to encompass the entire crew. Commander Zarathek, your people value strength above all else. Marcus, and I can give you strength you've never imagined. But, in return, I need something from you. What? I need you to trust us completely. No reservations, no backup plans, no safety protocols. What I'm about to attempt will only work if everyone on this bridge commits to it absolutely. Zarathek studied her for a long moment, weighing the impossible situation against years of military training and cultural conditioning. What do you need us to do? Lyra smiled, and this time it was the smile of someone who had found the perfect solution to an impossible puzzle. I need you to help me turn this ship into something our enemies have never seen before. A perfect fusion of Consortium innovation and Valdorian military excellence. Is that possible? Ask me in an hour, Lyra replied, already moving toward the engineering station. Marcus, I need you to interface with their weapon systems. I'm going to teach these computers how to think like humans instead of like machines. And what am I supposed to do with that? Something impossible, Lyra called over her shoulder. Make the ship fight like we do, with heart instead of just programming. As the enemy fleet approached their position, Princess Lyra began the most ambitious integration of cybernetic and organic intelligence ever attempted. But this time, she wasn't working alone. Marcus provided the tactical expertise, Commander Zurathek contributed Valdorian military protocols, and together they began creating something that would change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. The question was whether they could complete their work before 12 enemy ships arrived to destroy them all. Incoming transmission from the enemy fleet, the communications officer announced. "Let me take this one," Lyra said, moving to the communication station. "I want to hear exactly what they have to say." The same smooth, artificial voice filled the bridge. "This is your final warning. Surrender all personnel for immediate termination. Resistance will result in the complete destruction of your vessel." Lyra smiled and opened a return channel. "This is Princess Lyra Vextheri of the Cyborg Consortium, speaking for Commander Zurathek of the Valdorian 7th Fleet. We have a counter-proposal for you. You are not authorized to negotiate." "I'm not negotiating," Lyra replied calmly. "I'm offering you one chance to withdraw before we demonstrate why Consortium ingenuity and Valdorian military prowess should never be combined against a common enemy." There was a long pause before the voice responded. "You are bluffing. Your ship is damaged and outnumbered. We're also completely unpredictable," Lyra said, "which, as you're about to discover, is the most dangerous quality any weapon can possess." She closed the channel and turned to address the bridge crew. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're about to make history. Let's make sure it's the kind of history that people tell stories about." The enemy fleet approached in perfect formation, 12 ships moving with mechanical precision that spoke of coordinated artificial intelligence. On the bridge of Commander Zurathek's vessel, Princess Lyra worked with inhuman speed to integrate systems that were never designed to function together. "Marcus, how are the weapon modifications coming?" she called out without looking up from her console. "The targeting computers are fighting me," Marcus replied, sweat beading on his forehead as he wrestled with alien software. "Valdorian weapon systems aren't designed for human intuition. They want mathematical precision." "Then, give them mathematical precision with human creativity," Lyra suggested. "Don't override their calculations. Enhance them with pattern recognition they can't achieve alone." Commander Zurathek watched in fascination as her human prisoners worked to save her ship. "Princess, what exactly are you doing to our systems?" "I'm teaching them to think like a cyborg instead of like a computer," Lyra explained, her fingers dancing across multiple interfaces simultaneously. "Computers process data sequentially, following predetermined algorithms. Cyborgs integrate analytical processing with intuitive leaps, emotional understanding, and adaptive creativity. That's impossible. Emotional responses can't be programmed into tactical systems." "You're absolutely right," Lyra agreed. "Which is why I'm not programming emotions into your computers. I'm creating a neural bridge that allows organic minds to directly interface with your ship systems." The tactical officer stared at her in amazement. "You're going to control the entire ship through direct mental interface." "Not control. Collaborate." Lyra's voice carried the excitement of someone solving an impossibly complex puzzle. "Marcus, and I will provide creative problem solving and intuitive analysis, while your computers handle calculations and system management. The combination should give us capabilities that neither organic nor artificial intelligence could achieve alone." "Should?" Zarathek's voice carried skeptical concern. "Have you ever attempted anything like this before?" "Never on this scale," Lyra admitted cheerfully. "But that's what makes it interesting." The enemy ships opened fire while still at extreme range, their weapons reaching across vast distances with deadly precision. Zarathek's ship shuddered under the impact, but something had changed. Instead of following standard evasive patterns, the vessel began moving with fluid grace that seemed almost alive. "Shields holding," the tactical officer reported, surprise evident in his voice. "But they shouldn't be. Those weapons should have penetrated our defenses." "They would have," Lyra explained, "if we were relying solely on programmed responses. But Marcus is anticipating their targeting solutions and adjusting our defensive patterns faster than their computers can adapt." Marcus was deep in the neural interface now, his consciousness merged with the ship's targeting systems. Through his enhanced awareness, He could feel the enemy vessels like pieces on a three-dimensional chessboard. Each ship had its own attack pattern, its own rhythm of offense and defense. But more importantly, he could sense the coordination protocol that linked them together. "Princess," he said, his voice strangely distant. "They're not operating independently. They're the master control system managing their attack patterns." "Where?" "The largest vessel, center formation. It's broadcasting coordination signals to the other ships." Lyra nodded, integrating this information into her own analysis. Through her neural link to the ship's sensors, she could perceive the entire battle as a complex mathematical equation with variables that shifted in real time. But, unlike a computer, she could also feel the emotional resonance of the situation. The fear and confusion of the enemy crews, the desperate determination of her own allies, the cold certainty of the controlling artificial intelligence. "Commander Zarathek," she said, "I need you to do something that will violate every principle of Valdorian military doctrine." "What?" "Trust me completely, and allow me to take direct control of your ship's navigation systems." The bridge fell silent except for the sounds of weapons fire and system alerts. "You want me to turn control of a Valdorian capital ship over to a blind consortium princess?" Zarathek's voice was carefully controlled. "I want you to trust that Marcus and I can do something your enemies won't expect," Lyra replied. "Something impossible." Zarathek looked at the tactical display, where 12 enemy ships were systematically overwhelming her defenses despite their improved performance. At current rates, her ship would be destroyed within 10 minutes. "Do it," she ordered. The moment Lyra's consciousness fully integrated with the ship's navigation systems, everything changed. The vessel stopped moving like a machine and began flowing through space like a living creature. It danced between energy beams with impossible grace, turned and twisted through three-dimensional space in patterns that defied both physics and tactical logic. But Marcus was doing something even more remarkable with the weapon systems. Instead of firing at optimal mathematical solutions, he was targeting based on intuition and emotional understanding. He aimed not just at where the enemy ships were, but at where they wanted to be, where they feared to go, where their artificial intelligence couldn't predict. "Impossible," one of the Valdorian officers whispered. "No ship can move like that." "No ship controlled by artificial intelligence can move like that," Lyra corrected. "But this ship isn't being controlled by AI anymore. It's being guided by the kind of intelligence that can see patterns in chaos, find order in randomness, and turn desperation into creativity." The enemy formation began to fragment as their coordination protocols struggled to adapt to completely unpredictable movement patterns. The control ship attempted to compensate by increasing its coordination signals, but this only revealed its location more clearly to Marcus's enhanced awareness. "Princess, I can see their command structure now," Marcus announced. "The control ship is using quantum entanglement communication to manage the other vessels. If we can disrupt that communication, the entire fleet will lose coordination," Lyra finished. "But quantum entanglement can't be jammed with conventional methods." "What about unconventional methods?" Lyra's enhanced perception analyzed the enemy communication system, looking for weaknesses that pure logic couldn't find. Then she smiled, the expression of someone who had just realized something wonderful and terrible. "Marcus, remember what I did to disable those first 3 ships? The electromagnetic pulse. That won't work against quantum communication." "No, but what if we don't try to jam their signals? What if we add to them?" Marcus understood immediately. Feedback loop. We mirror their quantum communication and feed it back to them with amplified noise. Exactly. Their own coordination system becomes a weapon against them. Working together through their neural interface with the ship's systems, Marcus and Lyra began crafting an electromagnetic signature that would resonate with the enemy's quantum communication network. It required precise timing, mathematical accuracy beyond normal human capability, and the kind of intuitive understanding that no computer could replicate. "Ready?" Lyra asked. "Ready." They triggered the feedback pulse simultaneously, their combined consciousness directing every system on the ship toward a single, impossible goal. The result was spectacular. The enemy fleet's coordination signals suddenly amplified beyond all design parameters, creating a cascade of interference that overwhelmed their quantum communication network. Ships that had been moving in perfect formation suddenly found themselves cut off from central command, their artificial intelligence systems trying desperately to function independently. But the AI had been designed for coordinated fleet action. Individual ships couldn't adapt quickly enough to continue the battle without constant tactical updates from the command vessel. Now, Lyra shouted. While they're confused, the ship, still guided by her consciousness and Marcus's tactical intuition, flowed through the disrupted enemy formation like water through a broken dam. Marcus's weapons fire was surgically precise, targeting communication arrays, engine systems, and weapons capacitors with accuracy that seemed almost prescient. Within minutes, the enemy fleet was disabled rather than destroyed, 12 ships drifting powerless, their crews alive, but their vessels completely neutralized. Incredible, Commander Zarathek breathed. I've never seen anything like it. Lyra slowly disconnected from the ship's navigation systems, her consciousness returning to her own body. The neural interface had been more intense than anything she had ever attempted, leaving her momentarily disoriented. Marcus was in worse shape. The weapon's interface had required him to process targeting solutions at speeds that pushed human consciousness to its limits. He slumped against his console, exhausted but alert. "Princess, are you all right?" he asked. "I'm fine," she replied, though her voice carried the strain of what they had just accomplished. "But, Marcus, I don't think we should try that again anytime soon." The neural load was almost beyond human limits. "Worth it, though," he said with a tired smile. "We just proved that human consciousness can enhance artificial systems in ways no one thought possible." Commander Zarathek approached them slowly, her pale eyes reflecting a mixture of awe and calculation. "Princess, what you just demonstrated, this could change the nature of warfare throughout the galaxy. That's exactly why we can never let anyone else know how we did it," Lyra replied seriously. "This kind of neural integration could be incredibly dangerous in the wrong hands. But it could also end conflicts that might otherwise last for centuries," Zarathek pointed out. "Think of the lives that could be saved. Think of the lives that could be lost if this technology fell into the hands of people who use it for conquest rather than protection," Marcus countered. "Princess Lyra is right. This has to remain classified." Before Zarathek could respond, alarms began sounding throughout the ship once again. "Commander," the communications officer called out, "we're receiving priority transmissions from both the Consortium Third Fleet and the Valdorian High Command. They're demanding immediate explanations for the destruction of ships in neutral space." "Of course they are," Lyra said grimly. "Someone's been feeding false information to both governments, trying to start a war. Now, they're probably claiming we've destroyed peaceful vessels or committed acts of terrorism." Marcus moved to the sensor station. "Princess, those disabled ships, they're not showing any identification markers. No registry, no faction allegiance, nothing. Ghost ships," Zarathek realized, "designed to be untraceable. Which means whoever sent them has been planning this operation for a very long time," Lyra concluded. "And they have resources that extend far beyond what we've seen so far." The communication officer looked up from his station. "Commander, both fleets are demanding that we surrender all prisoners immediately and submit to investigation for acts of war. If we comply with either demand, we'll be separated and any evidence of this conspiracy will disappear," Marcus pointed out. "And if we don't comply, both fleets will consider us hostile," Zarathek added. Lyra was quiet for a moment, her enhanced hearing picking up subtle vibrations throughout the ship that indicated stress among the crew. Then, she turned to face Commander Zarathek directly. "Commander, there's a fourth option, one that requires more trust than you've ever been asked to give." "What?" "We take this evidence directly to the highest levels of both governments simultaneously. not through military channels, not through normal diplomatic protocols, but through emergency direct communication to the leaders themselves. That's impossible. Neither of us has authorization for that level of contact. I do, Lyra said quietly. Emergency royal privilege gives me the right to communicate directly with the Consortium Council during times of galactic crisis. And, as a fleet commander, you should have similar emergency authorization to contact Valdorian High Command. Even if we could reach them, why would they listen? Because we have something no one else has, Marcus said, understanding where Lyra was going with this. Proof that someone with access to both Consortium and Valdorian technology has been manipulating both governments. The disabled ships, Zarathek realized. Their hybrid technology. Exactly. If we can get investigation teams from both governments to examine those vessels simultaneously, they'll have to acknowledge that a third party has been working against both empires. That's assuming both governments are willing to cooperate instead of simply fighting over the evidence, Zarathek pointed out. Lyra smiled. Commander, do you remember what I told you about impossible situations being where I do my best work? Yes, I'm about to prove it. She moved to the communication station and began entering authorization codes that Marcus had never seen before. Within moments, she had established direct, encrypted channels to both the Consortium Council chambers and the Valdorian High Command Center. Leaders of the Consortium and the Empire, she began, her voice carrying the formal authority of her royal status. I am Princess Lyra of Vextheri, currently aboard the Valdorian vessel commanded by Zarathek of the 7th Fleet. We have uncovered evidence of a conspiracy designed to provoke war between our peoples. The responses came simultaneously from both channels, demands for proof, accusations of deception, threats of military action. Honored leaders, Lyra continued calmly. I propose an immediate joint investigation of 12 disabled vessels currently in our custody. These ships contain hybrid technology that proves they were built by a faction with access to both Consortium cybernetics and Valdorian energy systems. Furthermore, Commander Zarathek added, stepping up to join the communication, Princess Lyra and her guardian have just demonstrated defensive capabilities that saved my ship and crew. Whatever differences exist between our governments, the immediate threat comes from an unknown enemy that wants us to destroy each other. We're transmitting complete sensor logs and tactical data from our engagement, Marcus announced from his position at the data station. The evidence speaks for itself. There was a long pause as both governments processed the information. Finally, a voice from the Consortium Council responded. Princess Lyra, these claims are unprecedented. You're asking us to believe that our imprisonment by Valdorian forces was part of a larger conspiracy. Yes, Counselor. And I'm asking you to work with the Valdorian Empire to uncover who benefits from our mutual destruction. A different voice, carrying the harmonic undertones of Valdorian authority, spoke from the other channel. Commander Zarathek, you're recommending that we treat Consortium royalty as allies rather than prisoners? I'm recommending that we recognize that Princess Lyra and her guardian represent capabilities that could benefit both our peoples, Zarathek replied. They have demonstrated loyalty, courage, and abilities that transcend traditional boundaries. Joint investigation teams will be dispatched immediately. Both voices announced in unison, then paused as they realized they had spoken together. It appears, the Consortium representative said carefully, that we may have more common ground than previously assumed. Indeed, the Valdorian voice agreed. Perhaps this crisis represents an opportunity for expanded cooperation. As the communication ended, Princess Lyra slumped slightly, the adrenaline of the past few hours finally catching up with her. Princess. Marcus was at her side immediately. I'm fine, she said softly. Just tired. Neural integration is more exhausting than I expected. Commander Zarathek approached them, her expression thoughtful. Princess, what you've accomplished today, it's remarkable. But I have to ask, what happens now? When the investigation is complete, when the conspiracy is exposed, what becomes of this alliance we've formed? Lyra was quiet for a moment, her enhanced senses detecting the genuine concern in the commander's voice. "That depends," she said finally, "on whether leaders on both sides are willing to acknowledge that strength comes in many forms, and that cooperation can achieve things that dominance never could. And if they're not, then Marcus and I go back to being a defective princess and her human guardian," Lyra replied with a tired smile. "But at least we'll know that for a few hours we helped prevent a war and prove that impossible things become possible when people choose to trust each other." Marcus squeezed her shoulder gently. "Princess, I have a feeling this is just the beginning." "Beginning of what?" "Something impossible," he said, echoing her own words. "Something the galaxy has never seen before." As investigation teams from both governments began their approach, Princess Lyra allowed herself to hope that Marcus was right. They had proven that cooperation could triumph over conspiracy, that trust could overcome suspicion, and that sometimes the most powerful weapons were understanding and compassion. But she also knew that the hardest battles were often fought after the shooting stopped, in conference rooms and council chambers where different ideas of strength and value would clash just as violently as any military engagement. The real test of what they had accomplished would come in the days ahead, when they would have to convince two galactic empires that a blind cyborg princess and her human guardian had discovered something worth changing the universe for. Something impossible. Something hope. 3 days later, Princess Lyra stood in the conference chamber aboard the neutral station where representatives from both the consortium and the Valdorian Empire had gathered to examine the evidence. The disabled ships hung in space nearby, their hybrid technology now the subject of intense scrutiny by the galaxy's finest scientists and engineers. Marcus remained at her side, no longer wearing restraints, but still maintaining his protective position. Across the chamber, Commander Zurathek sat with the Valdorian delegation, her pale eyes occasionally meeting Lyra's with something that might have been understanding. The investigation had proceeded exactly as Lyra had predicted. The disabled vessels contained technology that could only have been developed through cooperation between consortium and Valdorian research teams. More disturbingly, their crews consisted of individuals from dozens of different species, all showing signs of advanced neural conditioning that had erased their original identities and loyalties. "The evidence is conclusive," announced General Thane, the consortium's chief military advisor. "These ships were built by an organization with access to our most classified technologies. But what we still don't understand is how such cooperation was achieved without our knowledge." Admiral Kextar, representing the Valdorian High Command, leaned forward in his chair. "Our intelligence services have identified at least 12 research facilities that were supposedly destroyed during various conflicts over the past decade. In reality, they were salvaged and relocated to hidden bases in neutral space. So someone has been collecting our discarded technology and using it to build a shadow fleet," General Thane concluded grimly. "The question remains, who?" Marcus stepped forward. "With permission, I'd like Princess Lyra to address that question. Her analysis of the ship's computer systems has revealed information that your traditional investigation methods missed." Both delegations turned their attention to Lyra, their expressions ranging from curiosity to skepticism. She moved gracefully to the center of the chamber, her blind gaze somehow managing to encompass the entire assembly. "Honored representatives," she began, "the answer to who orchestrated this conspiracy is less important than understanding why it was possible in the first place." "Explain," General Thane requested. "For centuries, the consortium and the Empire have defined strength as the absence of weakness. We enhance ourselves to eliminate limitations. We build weapons to overcome opposition. We develop technology to dominate challenges." Lyra paused, allowing her words to settle. "But in doing so, we've created a blindness to certain possibilities." Admiral Kextar's voice carried cool authority. "What possibilities?" "The possibility that weakness can become strength, that limitations can foster innovation, that cooperation can achieve what domination cannot." Lyra turned toward the Valdorian delegation. Admiral, your people prize physical and technological superiority above all else. But Commander Zarathek discovered that a blind cyborg princess could perceive patterns that your finest computers missed. She then faced the consortium representatives. General Thane, my own people consider me a defective heir because my optical implants failed. But that failure forced me to develop capabilities that no successful integration could have produced. Your point, General Thane asked, though his tone had lost some of its skepticism. My point is that the conspiracy succeeded because it exploited our mutual assumption that strength comes from eliminating weakness rather than understanding it. Lyra moved closer to the display, showing the disabled ships. The enemy didn't need to infiltrate our governments or steal our secrets. They simply had to encourage each side to see the other as a threat to be dominated rather than a partner to learn from. Commander Zarathek spoke for the first time since the session began. Princess Lyra is correct. The attack patterns, the timing, even the choice of targets. Everything was designed to reinforce existing prejudices rather than create new conflicts. But who benefited from this manipulation? Admiral Kextar demanded. Marcus activated a holographic display showing star charts and trade routes. The same organization that's been quietly establishing control over strategic resources throughout the galaxy. While the Consortium and Empire have been focused on competing with each other, a third faction has been positioning itself to control the economic infrastructure that both civilizations depend on. The display highlighted dozens of mining operations, manufacturing facilities, and transportation hubs that had changed ownership during periods of heightened tension between the two empires. The Meridian Syndicate, General Thane breathed. We thought they were just an economic consortium. They are, Lyra confirmed. But they're also something more. They've been using conflicts between major powers to acquire strategic assets at reduced prices, then leveraging those assets to influence political decisions. And if the Consortium and Empire had gone to war? Admiral Kextar asked. Both governments would have needed massive loans to finance the conflict, Marcus explained. Loans that could only come from organizations with sufficient economic resources. The Meridian Syndicate would have ended up controlling both empires through debt rather than conquest. The chamber fell silent as the implications became clear. So what do you propose we do about it? General Thane,